Welcome back, everyone, to some more disc golf footage here at the MSU Wise Center in Starkville, Mississippi. Huge thank you to Disc and That for sponsoring this coverage and supporting disc golf. We're going to start right in here on hole 10, par 3, 262 feet. This one is a pretty stock backhand hyzer for our right-handed players and a nice little lefty flick. We've got this OB creek here right behind it and then kind of wrapping around it, but you have to throw really far past the basket to get to that. Joseph trying to show us how far you need to throw it, but ending up in a great spot just inside the circle. Got John Blount here. Throwing really high, maybe a bit too inside. Just a little bit fading into that bush there. The rough here on the left-hand side is very thick. Mason McKay, similar line, maybe made the correction on width. So we'll have to see where that ended up. Here we've got Dylan. I think you pronounce his last name Lomax, but can't be sure. Nice low line here. Looks like it skipped up just past that bush, so we will see where he landed. And bringing up the rear, Ethan Beck. This looks a little too inside. I think it got caught up in that bush. Yeah, exactly where he ended up. Really just kind of have to pitch it up to the basket and hope for the best from here. Giving that a nice little bit. Catching some of that early brush there. Knocking him down, but easy par. Which is really all you can hope for when you're this early. Because as you can see, this stuff is thick. Dylan giving that one a nice run. Here we see John also ended up a little bit short. Opting for the turbo. Oh, giving it an excellent run. I really wish that had gone in. That would have been awesome. Mason getting pretty lucky here to not be super deep given the angle that was on. Cashing in that too, bring himself back to even. Not quite under par, but getting there. Dylan also saving the par on that one. Here we finally get to Joseph's drive. Cashing in that birdie, bringing himself to even as well. And Ethan and John to clean up their pars.
Almost had the turbo there.
Here we arrive at hole 11, par 3, 387 feet. This one, not quite a stock hyzer. We've got this OB ditch here to the left. We've got the OB parking lot all the way there over to the right, so the hole tapers in towards the basket. Joseph showing us how it's done with this beautiful turnover line. Putting himself about 340, I would say. See what Mason McKay ends up doing. Throwing this one nice and wide, which is definitely the safe play. As long as it doesn't flip over, he should have a pretty okay look. Easy up and down at least. This is definitely a risky play here. If you turn this over at all, that thing is gone, but there is no OB line, so as long as you're not in the ditch itself, you're totally fine. And this looks like a great shot. And that's an easy 2 there. Dylan opting for the backhand shot. Definitely the more common play for our right-handed players. This one looks a little too low. If it had the height, I really like the line, but unfortunately just didn't have it. And Ethan Beck. Opting for the high hyzer looks. A little bit of a false start. Not sure what happened there, but I definitely had the hyzer, but not quite the height. Here we see Dylan from probably about 60 or 70 feet. Cashing that one in from the distance, running it down. That was awesome. And I believe Ethan did actually end up going out of bounds. That's his disc there in the parking lot. Trying to save the par from there. Leaving a little bit of meat on that bone, but should be a pretty easy bogey. Nice looking putt from Mason there. Just ending up a little too low and sailing under the basket. Here we see Joseph. I would say this is more like 360 or so feet. Definitely a lot further than I initially thought. Oh, just way too low on that one. Sounded like there was a ripping tailwind, so probably accounts for the drop. Mason able to clean up the 3. For some reason there was a very delayed camera pan on that, but it is what it is. Here we have Ethan to save to clean up the 4. Definitely a little bit of a hill, so footing a little, at least if you're a staggered putter, a little interesting. Oh, and that was a pretty spooky catch right there. Here we see John. CTP on the hole. And the wind, of course, ripping. And unfortunately sailing that one over the basket, leaving himself about 15 feet for the comebacker. And putting that one low. So now he's putting for 4. Doinking the bogey putt. He will have a tap-in double. Oh. You've heard of Birdogie. Birdouble Dogie. I don't know what to say to that. That is very unfortunate. And Joseph to clean up the 3. Moving on to happier times. Hole 12, par 4, 673 feet. This one is amazing. This is a nice little par 4, kind of a gimme. Definitely not a gimme in the wind. Let me be very clear with that one. First up, we've got Dylan. Huge run up. Huge shot. I didn't even go over the OB. OB ditch here to the right. You kind of see all that dead gray stuff. That's in the OB ditch. So as long as you're left of that, you'll be all right. Joseph going for the lefty turnover. Unfortunately, sailing over the OB and not being in a great position. Mason McKay. Mason has such an interesting form. It really reminds me a lot of Ricky. Ricky and Chris Dickerson together. Ending up in a good spot, probably about 250 left to the pin. Ethan Beck. Ethan Beck. Sorry, I'll stop. Yep, nice and safe. Leaving a lot of meat left on the... Wow, the huge skip over to the left. I like that phrase, apparently. A lot of meat left on the bone. Sorry to my vegetarian audience of, 2 people. John opting for this huge forehand. Holy cow. Where has that been? Joseph to try and get up and down and save the 4. Looks like he put himself in a pretty good spot, maybe 20 or so feet. With how spread out these shots were, it was difficult for me to be in position to have a good camera angle, so I do apologize. That's a little bit wonky here. And once again, super delayed camera pan, but it is what it is. Ethan looks like he put himself in about similar spot to Joseph. And the wind just whipping all today. It was cold and windy. And Dylan put himself pretty short. We finally get to John. Looks like he's throwing a zone, fading out pretty early, leaving himself a long putt. And Mason putting himself at a nice 10 or so feet. I do not believe John ended up going out of bounds, so this is just where his disc landed. Sailing that one to the right of the basket. Hopefully he has a very short memory and just cashes in his par and moves on. This is Joseph to save his par. Nice little spin putt there, unfortunately just missing to the right side. Right from his perspective. Ethan for the 3. Oh, and just doinking it low. Let's see if Dylan can make the correction. Going through his whole routine. Cashing that one in, making the 3. Mason a little high, but still catches. And John just... I don't know. That seems very unforced. Joseph making the bogey. John making the bogey. And Ethan tapping in his par. Hole 13, par 3, 256 feet. This is One of the more gimmicky holes on the course. We've got a Mando to the left of this tree that we just wrapped around the left side of. If there were ever any holes for John to come back, these next three are definitely the ones to get, because they are forehand holes for sure. Dylan up first, going nice and high. Unfortunately, ending up short of the Mando tree. Definitely didn't miss the Mando. There is a painted line. Mason McKay. Making the Mando, getting no skip, just sticking immediately. Very unfortunate reaction off the ground, but should be in a good position to make the two. Ethan here, ending in a fantastic spot. One of the more lefty-friendly holes, especially since that tree went down. As you see, there are only two big trees to make it through. And hitting the basket. I forgot about that. That was awesome. Putting himself around 10 feet, and finally we've got John. Putting a mush on this one. And putting himself in a good position. So Dylan, short of the mandatory line, and just has to pitch something around the corner and get himself as close as he can. Hitting the Mando sign, not going past the Mando line again, so thankfully does not proceed to the drop zone, but still in a horrible position. That one catching edge and putting himself about as far as the drop zone would be. So this is for 4. And thankfully that one just dropping under the basket, so he will have a tap-in double bogey. John just laying up that one. As you can see and hear, the wind is blasting. Mason accounting for it, cashing in the 2. John cleaning up the 3, unfortunately not getting a stroke back. 2 more good lefty/forehand holes. Ethan cashing in that 2. Joseph cashing in the 2 as well. And Dylan, unfortunately, with the double bogey. Hole 14, par 3, 287 feet. We've got an OB walking path there to the left side. Anything left of that or on it is OB, and we've got this OB ditch to the right. Being past it is totally fine, just in it or in the rocks is out of bounds. Mason McKay up first, showing us this nice hyzer or backhand hyzer line, excuse me. Unfortunately not being very nice and ending up in the out of bounds. Let's see if Ethan Beck can make the correction here. Turning this one way over. Ending up past those trees, not out of bounds, just really out of position. Good looking shot from Joseph. Oh, flashing in front of the chains. Finally, we've got John. Turning that one over a little. Thankfully fighting back in bounds and short of the OB line. Oh, I said finally John. Dylan, excuse me. I totally forgot. Dylan He did not give me enough time to film him dropping that in, so that was underneath the basket. Mason to get up and down. Looks like he put himself about 15 feet. Oh no, a little too much hyzer on this one. That tailwind kind of grabbing it and pushing it a little longer than he'd like. Should be alright to get the 3 though. And Ethan, way out of position, did a great job to get up and down. And I don't remember Joseph being this far from the pin. I thought it was an ace run. I don't know if there was some wind that caught it and pushed it, or what happened. The wind definitely catching that one and just sailing it. I say sailing it, it would just stopping it. You know what I'm trying to say. John from about 15 feet. No Raz for him. Cashing in the 3. Mason cashing in the 2 as well. Joseph to clean up the 3. Oh, I'm sorry. Mason made a bogey there. Excuse me. And Ethan cleaning up his 3 as well. Hole 15, the last of the lefty/forehand friendly holes. We've got a par 3, 45 feet, excuse me. Little dyslexia going on there. This left side is definitely more open than the right side that Dylan is going on here. But definitely playing it correctly with the skip, because it is a low ceiling with all these trees. So whatever you do, left side, right side, you definitely want it to be low and skipping on the ground. Ethan catching one of those early trees, kicking him back. Should be an easy up and down, but not a 2. And that's how you want to play it. That right there, one of the best shots you'll see, and definitely the shot that you want to emulate on this hole. John a little inside, also catches one of those early trees and kicks him way out to the right. Should be an easy up and down, but a difficult 2. And Mason really early. He'll be about pin high right though from not catching anything. We have Ethan to get up and down, or maybe throw it in for the 2. Pulling that one a little too far to the left. Should be an easy 3 from there. And John putting that one really short. We finally get to Dylan. Got a little bit of an obstructed putt, excuse me. Trying to talk over myself here. Oh, and a great committed bid there. Easy par cleanup. Joseph with that nice floaty spin putt, unfortunately not catching any metal. Mason from a similar distance, maybe a couple feet closer in than where Joseph was. Cashing in that birdie. This man was dangerous from any distance. And John to clean up the 3. Good par cleanup. Joseph, unfortunately, left side skating off the basket. Dylan cashing in that par as well. And Ethan for his birdie. Oh, I'm sorry, not birdie. This is for par. I'm just crazy. I'm crazy. And Joseph for the unfortunate, unforced bogey here. And hole 16, par 4, 597 feet. If there were no trees here on this left-hand side, this would probably be a pretty bomber par 3. But being as there are trees there, it is a placement shot and then an upshot to get to the basket. So it definitely plays a lot farther than the 600 feet. We've got this OB ditch just straight off the basket, and then we've got the OB walking path past that. Oh my. That is a bad mistake from Mason. That is a very difficult up and down. Dylan putting a little bit of flex on this one. Putting himself in a good position. So most of our pros just wanted to get either past those trees or around those trees. And Ethan looks like he just got past those trees, so should be in a good position. Nice and low for John here. Also in a good position. This looks very aggressive from Joseph. That should also be pretty alright if it didn't push too long. Mason McKay just jump putting up to the gap here to give himself an easy look to get up and down. Definitely don't want to do anything too crazy in this wind. And we lost the disc in the air there. That should be on the correct side of the trees, in this case being the right side. And Mason putting himself in a good spot to clean up on the par there. John getting himself into a fantastic position. Just being past these trees is ideal. And looks like he put himself a little bit short, but we will see. Distances are hard to gauge here. And Joseph, unfortunately, too aggressive off the tee and ended up out of bounds in the ditch. That was another card on the other side of the ditch, if you were curious as to what that yelling was about. And Ethan with one of the best drives. Going very aggressive, but it looks like he got caught up a little short. No, he was totally fine. Well within the circle. Just a little undercommitted on that one. That downhill putt definitely gets in your head. And John just not able to get it together on the putting green. The putting woes continue. Speaking of putting woes, Joseph unable to clean up the par there, hitting the band, thankfully sticking on the grass. These sloped greens can get pretty fast. Dylan showing us how it's supposed to be done, cashing in that 3. And the wind just ripping right as John's trying to putt, which is not ideal. A little bit of frustration venting there, it looks like. And just shoots it right into the heart. He's like, you know what? I don't need the wind to bother me. I'm just throwing it in. And Mason cleaning up the 4, excuse me, I almost said 3. Ethan cleaning up the par as well, and Joseph for his bogey. On to hole 17, par 3, 299 feet. That distance, very accurate. This is pretty much just a dead straight shot. We've got these crepe myrtles circling all behind, so if you go past those, you are very obstructed. And we've got these nice low limbs of these trees to keep you in the middle of the fairway. Dylan piping this one nice and straight. This hill a little deceptive on where you end up, so Mason going really high, looks like a putter maybe. Unfortunately, he will be past those crepe myrtles, so very obstructed. You got to make some magic happen to get the 2 from there. Ethan nice and straight. Hopefully catching some skip off the ground towards the basket, but that should be in a good spot no matter what. John throwing nice and wide and stable, and that should be in a great spot. And finally, we've got Joseph opting for the forehand once again. He is a surgeon with this thing. And cutting a little wide there, but should be in an alright spot, at least having a look at it. Mason not wanting to risk anything bad, just pitching up to the basket. Dylan shooting way past the basket here, also on this left side behind the crepe myrtle, so having to straddle to get a good look at the basket here. A great bid from being so out of position, and an easy par from there. Joseph a lot shorter than I thought he would be. Oh, and just very unforced error there, just sailing it over the basket on so much hyzer. I don't know if he was expecting the wind to drop it or what. And John finally catching a break and catching a birdie. Joseph cleaning up the 3. Ethan for his look at birdie. Catching that one nicely. Nice dead center. And Mason for his 3. Good par cleanup. And Dylan does the same. And here we have the final hole. Hole 18, par 3, 395 feet. This one is a bomber because there is no downhill to help you with the distance. It is just straight 400 feet. Ethan Beck up first. As always, this parking lot here on the left-hand side is out of bounds, so if you smash somebody's windshield, you'll be sad and out of bounds. Putting a nice hyzer on this one. Go, whoa, way too much flip. Kind of lost sight of it there for a second, and it ends up about pin high, but to the right. Here we've got John, for some reason not going with that smash of a forehand he's got. Seems like a mistake to me, but what do I know? And he'll end up probably at about 50 or so feet to the basket. It is difficult to play these bomber holes with the wind being as whipping as it is. So it looks like Dylan landed in a pretty decent spot. And it looks like Mason ended up in a great looking spot. Joseph opting for turnover backhand here. Lots of turn on this one. Thankfully staying in bounds. And pretty out of position here. Nice little skip action. Looks like he put himself about 15-20 feet. John putting a nice line on that one, just getting a lot more lift than he was expecting, looks like. And Ethan crushed it, unfortunately ending up way in circle 2 here, just to the right of the basket. Putting a pretty decent bid on that one. And Mason just coming up left side on that one. Looks like high left side. Oh, and Dylan absolutely parked. Great birdie from him. That puts him at 4 down for the round. Joseph cashing in that par as well. Mason almost going out of bounds on the putt. Saves the par as well. John follows suit. And Ethan to finish this out. Dylan 1 off of the hot round here. Today we have Kyle Gray at 5 down, leading the field. He will be on our lead card for the next round. We've got Dylan, Noah, and Ryan Montgomery all at 4 down, and then Josue Salas at 3 down. So once again, I would like to give a big shout out to Andy Hunt and Disc in That for supporting the channel, supporting this coverage, and supporting disc golf. Check them out in Starkville. And a huge thank you to you all for watching. A huge thank you to my patrons on Patreon. We've got Andy Hunt and we've got Sean Trapp. So big thank you to you guys for supporting the channel. Hopefully see you all on the next one.